Hi fantasy managers, welcome to FPL Team Talk. In this video, I'm going to go through my transfer tips, my watch list for game week 27. We're going to take a bit of a deep dive into the statistics of some of those players that we want to target over the next 3 game weeks where there's some big doubles to take advantage of and a blank in 28. So if you enjoy these sort of videos, give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe. And in the meantime, let's jump into it. Okay, I am sure you're aware there's double game weeks coming up, and game week 27 is a double game week, which we have a couple of teams doubling up. We've also got the double up in game week 29 and the blank in between times in game week 28. So whoever we bring in now, depending on your chip strategy, is going to be important to look at game week 28. Now, if you intend to free hit in game week 28, we'll have a guide out for that next week. Then maybe we're going to look at certain sides and maybe avoid certain other sides. I would say, though, at the moment, double game week 27 and double game week 29, Brentford and Brighton Assets look really important to have. They've both got good double game weeks. We're going to get 2 extra fixtures in those game weeks compared to some of the other sides. They're not the only sides doubling, but they do have favourable. The fact that they're the only sides doubling in both of those game weeks just makes them really important assets to hold. I wouldn't be looking beyond any of Brighton or Brentford players right now. Now, if you're blanking, well, we are blanking in game week 28. If you are free hitting in game week 28, then maybe we need to be aware of some of the teams that are not playing. We don't have Brighton, which is annoying because they double in 27 and 29. Liverpool, Manchester United, Man City are all blanking as well. So if you're stacked up on all of those players, those teams, we either need to have got rid of them before now, or we've resigned ourselves to the fact we're free hitting in 28. On the good side, Brentford do play in 28. So we know they've got a double in 27. We know they play in 28 and they have a double in 29. So Brentford players are absolutely going to be important players to have. They're in good form as well. And like Brighton, they're just good assets at the moment to get on board. They are scoring a lot of points. So in this video, we're going to really focus on those Brighton assets and those Brentford assets that we could be going for. To start with, I would say I'm going to take the more difficult route, which is Brighton. Now, they do blank in 28, so unless you can definitely cover 28, I don't think I'll be risking bringing any more Brighton players in unless you're going to make a transfer now and transfer them out. And it could still be worth it. When it gets to game week 30, their fixtures do get a little bit more tricky. So it's only going to be for the next 3 game weeks that you would have them. And definitely, you get 2 extra fixtures for that. And then maybe, if you might be wild carding out of it, but I'll be starting to offload some of those Brighton assets then. So, some of the Brighton assets are a little bit trickier to decipher than others. I wild carded in game week 26, so I have brought in 3 Brighton assets. The obvious choice for me was straight away was Mitoma, 5.5. He's got 6 goals now this season. He's got 4 assists, and his XGI is pretty decent at 0.59. For that sort of price, 2 fixtures to this week and in game week 29, absolutely fine. If you're free hitting, absolutely want to be desperately bringing in Brighton defenders for this week, Brighton players for this week. The other choice could be McAllister. Now, I have gone Mitoma and McAllister. McAllister, 6 goals as well. He's popped up with just the 1 assist. He's on pens, and his XGI is a lot lower, 0.29, but we'll cover him in a minute. The other choice, I think, in midfield is a little bit trickier, is March, 5.1, 5 goals, but he has picked up 6 assists. So overall, he's having more goal involvement than the other 2. And his XGI pretty much mirrors Mitoma, but he's 0.4 less. Now, if you were going for 2 Brighton midfielders, and bear in mind they're scoring so many goals at the moment, I definitely want some of those Brighton assets. Up front, there doesn't look a lot of choice, especially when it comes to nailed-on players. Welbeck scored at the weekend, but didn't start. Evans, not sure about his game time because of Welbeck, and even Undav in there as well you could throw into the mix. So in terms of game times, these 3 players as an attacking source for Brighton are the 3 that I'm looking at. Would I want to triple up? I'm not sure I would. I would be happier having 2 of them and keeping a defender, and we'll look at that option in a minute. But which 2 would I be going for? Now, I have gone for McAllister and I have gone Mitoma, but when I've deep dived into this for game week 27, starting to wonder whether I made a good decision. Certainly can't regret the fact that McAllister and Mitoma both got double-digit scores. March didn't in game week 26, so I'm happy for that. Perhaps the stats don't quite back that up as much as I would like it to, though. One thing that I have to say is McAllister in the last 3 game weeks has been playing a far more advanced role. So, to get an idea, a fair reflection, over the season he's just been getting 0.29. He is on penalty, so he's still doing well. But to get a fair reflection of his overall contribution to play and statistically, does he stand up to the other two, I can only really take the last 3 games. Don't like it's such a straw poll, but this is about getting ahead of the curve. If you can get on a player before he starts, if you can see the trend before he starts to kick and get those double game week points, then you will be ahead of the curve. You will steal a march on the rest of your FPL rivals. Matoma in the last 3 games, okay, and this is only the last 3 games because McAllister has been playing much further forward as opposed to a deeper or box-to-box role. Matoma, 2 shots in the last 3 games, not great, 3 key passes, that's okay, that's fine. And his XGI is actually a little bit lower, 0.343. But again, he did contribute in the last game with a goal and assist, so not too worried about that. But you compare that to McAllister in the last 3 games, wow, double the amount of key passes, 7. 14 shots, 7 times more shots, and his XGI is huge, 1.14, and that is his non-penalty XGI. If he actually took his penalty in, it goes up to about 1.34 per 90 minutes. So that's not just one get. That's not just one get. That's every game he's averaging 1.41 in the 1.14 in the last 3 games. So that is really impressive. And I know it's only a straw poll, and I have to just bear that in mind. It's only over 3 game weeks, but putting that alongside the fact that he's got double game weeks, he's nailed. He's had a bit of a rest since the World Cup as well before he's come back in. All this just adds more weight to the whole argument of having McAllister in. You look at Solly March, 9 shots, 10 key passes. His XGI, non-pens, 1.2, even better than McAllister. Now, he didn't return in the last game. He is the cheapest of the 3. And you look at Matoma's stats, and you look at March's stats, and there's no competition. I'm saving 0.4. He is getting 3 times as many shots, 3 times as key passes, and his XGI is nearly 3 times as good. This is only the last 3 games. Over the season, you'd have to say Matoma is just about shading it, although March does have more goal involvement. I think maybe I've slept on March a little bit. I just don't think I've taken him seriously because he's been more of a defender in recent years. But having moved further up park, he looks really good. So if I was to decide now who to go for, I mean, based on the stats the last 3 games, and again, it is just a straw poll, March, you'd have to say he's shading it, and McAllister as well. I don't like the idea of leaving Matoma out, and you can't ignore the fact that he has, even though stats don't back it up in the last 3 games, he has got more goal involvements, but March looks really good. I don't think any 3 of these players are a bad option. I think it's a little bit of a nit for now. I think you can't really go wrong. McAllister, for the one thing I do like about McAllister is that his ownership is far less than Matoma and March, so I do think he's a bit of a more differential. I like the fact he's on pens. If budget was a real option, I think I'd have to go March, but otherwise, any 2 of these 3 look good. Matoma more expensive, last 3 games not as impressive, but still decent. Difficult to overlook Matoma. So even though the stats back March up, I don't know whether I could take that leap of faith yet. I mean, if you've got 2 of these 3s, I certainly wouldn't be moving, and I'm not looking to make a sideways move from Matoma to March, let's say, even if it would save me money. But March looks really good. That's all I'd say. These stats, impressive for all 3, but March, well, he surprised me, and I think if I was wildcarding now, would I take the punt for March over Matoma? I think I quite possibly would for 0.4. Looking at other assets for Brighton, then the other 3 that stand out, I think Estepinian defensively, you could go for the likes of Veltman, obviously scored in the last month. We've got Dunk in there as well. For me, Estepinian just sticks out in terms of his goal involvement, 0.18. It's not bad. It's much better than the other Brighton players. He is getting forward. He got 5 assists so far this season. He looks pretty nailed to me. I just think Estepinian has to be the one. 4.8, cheap as chips as well. Other players, possibly Ferguson, 4.6. He looks really good. It's his minutes that would worry me, 4.6. And also it takes up another striker slot. We got the likes of Kane, Haaland, people on Nketiah as well, and Tony with great fixtures. Can I afford to use another striker slot for Ferguson? 4.6, it is tempting, but I just don't think I can. He rarely gets 90 minutes. He is a bit of a risk in terms of rotation with Welbeck, but I do like him, and XGI is really good for 4.6, but I'm just not sure I can bring myself to use one of those valuable striker slots for him. The other option as well, again, really good budget option. So De Zerbi's come out and said Steele, he likes and suits his style of play. He came in for the last game, 1 appearance, 1 clean sheet, 6 points. That's all he's got. 3.9, really tempt him. Again, I'm not sure whether I'll just be going there just because of the element of doubt. He's played one game. Is Sanchez not going to be happy on the sidelines? Spanish international. Does Sanchez play in the FA Cup, have a good game and convince De Zerbi, as Steele does, that he's going to be in? I don't know. Steele looks good at 3.9. I'm not even sure I'd use him as a backup, but it is a bit of a pump, bit of a differential. But if I was going to go for two Brighton midfielders, I think I've just got to pluck. I've got to pluck for Estepinian rather than Steele and look elsewhere for my goalkeeper option. But those are the Brighton assets that I would be looking at. Estepinian, definitely from a defensive point of view, and then really take your pick from those two midfielders. Okay, the next side I'm going to look at, and definitely interested because they double in 27. They have a decent fixture in 28 as well. Difficult double in 29, but it is a double. They got Newcastle at home, Wolves away. They're on great form. It's got to be Brentford. I would be prioritising Brighton players if I could negotiate 28 without being able to carry one or two. Otherwise, if I couldn't, I've got to go for Brentford players. They're the next available. Even though 4 out of the next 5 away from home, I just think there's some standout players that I would definitely be going for, and they just look in such good form at the moment. I did read a stat, which I probably should have checked, says that one of the form sides since the World Cup finished, and since the Premier League restarted. Obvious choice is Ivan Toney. I brought him in for my wildcard last week. I'll definitely be bringing him in this week. I don't really need to sell him too hard. He's 15 goals, 3 assists, 0.75 XGI. That is non-penalties. If you take his penalties into account, it's up to about 0.91. So that's nearly a goal involvement every game. And look at those. Most of those are in terms of goals, which give us more points. The only thing hanging over his head was he's got these charges from the FA. Who knows what's going to happen with those? I just don't think I can spend my time worrying about the fact that Toney is going to get charged by the FA, because that just could happen by the end of the season. It could happen during the end of by the close season. Who knows what's going to happen? And he's just so nailed on with such great fixtures. The other thing that was hanging over his head, and still is 2 yellow cards away from picking up a 2-match ban. He's got to get to game week 32 before that will be cleared. So he is 2 games away. He went through last night without picking up a yellow, which was great, which means he'll definitely get both games in the double, unless he gets sent off in game week 27. If he does pick up 2 quick yellows, I think it's just a straight swap to Watkins for me. But 15 goals, Toney, absolutely. He is head and shoulders above any other Brentford asset in terms of going forward. There just isn't. If you want to go in Buemo and desperately need a differential, you could do. But Toney's the one. At 7.7, he just looks such good value. In terms of defensive assets, I have gone Ben Mee. I just think absolutely nailed. He has had some goal involvement this season. I think if I was to do this again, I'll be working on now. I think Rico Henry just looks as good. XGI is better. 2 assists, perhaps not reflected in his XGI, but he's absolutely nailed. Getting for 4.6. It saves you $500,000. Rico Henry looks like the other choice. And Raya is the other one. Nailed in the Brentford goal. One of the top point scoring FPL managers. Again, probably should have checked that out there. He's got more points than any other goalkeeper at one time. I don't know whether Kepa's overtaken him or not, but 109 points. Doing really well. 8 clean sheets. If he carries on that rate of 1 every 3, then maybe we're going to get 2 over the next 3 game weeks. That's another 12-point haul plus save points. He looks really good. Those 3 just look like the absolute standout assets. I can't think. The people have gone for Pinnock for the price. He got a goal last night. Very fortunate, I thought. In terms of attacking threat and the price, I just think Henry is nailed on. I just think he's got more attacking threat than the others. Not huge, I know. Could go Hickey, but it's an extra, $500,000. I think Rico Henry, Raya, Toney. I don't mind doubling up on that Brentford defence. I think they're pretty strong. In fact, they got 2 extra games in the next 3 game weeks, and they play in game week 28. Just seals the deal for me, and they're just playing so well at the moment. I can't look outside any of these other than these 3 assets for me right now. That's it for this one then. Let me know in the comments below, who are you intending to bring in for game week 27? Or are you going to roll a transfer? Which Brentford, Brighton assets, or who else have I missed off that you think we should be bringing in? In the meantime, we'll come back at you with a team selection before the end of the week. So if you haven't hit that like button, make sure you do so. Hit the subscribe, and I shall speak to you soon.